All right, recording. Okay, so hi everybody, and welcome back to many people from Open Source Summit North America. Without giving you my full redux for everybody, I thought it was a really successful event. I thought CHAOSS had a really nice presence at the summit. Between CHAOSScon, which maybe I'm kind of Pollyanna on this, but I thought it was pretty awesome. There were a lot of really good people with a lot of really good ideas, and I loved the presentations. I loved the lightning talks, all that kind of stuff. So I was pretty psyched about that. And then we had, there's Georg. Then we had a fair number of other things going on at Open Source Summit North America. So I thought maybe we could spend just a little time as to what kind of our to-dos that people took away from the summit are. From my perspective, I think the big takeaway, well, maybe there were two big takeaways. We added two people to the CHAOSS board. So Ray, who is on the call right here. Welcome, Ray, to the board. Thank you. So, and Ben Lloyd Pearson. So Ray's at GitLab. And then Ben Lloyd Pearson from Oath, which is Oath, a Verizon company, which is how I've learned that you say the name of the company. So, so anyway, it's nice to have everybody. Nice to welcome two new members of the board. I think the biggest takeaway for me from CHAOSScon was the development of stories. So how people are using the metrics and the decisions that they're making from them. So that was by far the biggest takeaway from me, because we've talked about this in the past, but I think that was the big one for me. So, and I think Georg, isn't that kind of what you were already putting forward? Mm-hmm. Which is how to capture these stories from folks.
Yeah, and this is something that I also heard the OpenClaim community interested in doing. And I talked to several people at the conference just to brainstorm what the best way to do this is. And after considering a few options, the blog post seems to be the way to go because it's easy to consume. You can read it at work. You don't run into issues of your video being blocked or needing a commute to listen to a podcast. You get a link that you can reference out. We can link to resources like dashboards or software that is being used for metrics. We can include screenshots. So there's many good things about the blog post format to share stories. And then what I posted to the mailing list yesterday is a point of discussion on how we can move forward and enable anyone in the community to write those blog posts so that we have a standard format.
So I put that comment in there. Would we ask the community members to write them, or would we, here kind of help write them? Are these interviews or are these like self-report?
They're not interviews.
Okay.
So this is something that Kim from the CNCF, she does marketing for CNCF, and she said the easiest is to just send out an email, ask for the specifics, and then edit it afterwards.
Okay.
To get into the format.
Okay. So it can kind of be a free flow kind of typing by the individual.
Yeah.
And then we can
narrow it, shorten it,
okay,
put it into the right format. And
okay.
This is something that we can do here. This is if anyone else in the CHAOSS community wants to do this, they're welcome to do this. So that's, anyone can write those blog posts, and the way we collect those stories is through those emails because it's less overhead.
Okay. What are people's thoughts on this?
So I think that this that you're describing is communicating about the CHAOSS project. It's CHAOSScon first, but then it's just generally how do we communicate and what is the vehicle that we use to share the work that we're doing here with a broader audience? Am I tracking?
No, it's more about, so if, say Ray at GitLab is using particular metrics to solve a particular problem. So he has a problem or a question that he's looking to answer.
Right.
It selects a series of metrics to help shed light on that problem, kind of capturing that story, and then how that information actually helped inform a decision or an action down the road.
So these are kind of like micro case studies is what you're talking
Yeah, because a lot of people, I think a lot of people are just wanting to get their bearings on what is the problem that people are trying to solve with metrics, whether they're D&I metrics, whether they're growth, maturity, and decline metrics, whether they're risk metrics or whatever it might be, but just get their bearings on what other people are doing and what action can come from those. So that's what these are.
Okay.
So I think micro case study is a good way to put it. I also talked to Jonah Bacon about this idea, and he said one of the things that will make it really valuable to the way that he thinks to a lot of community members is you have very narrow focus, one hypothesis that is being tested, something like we don't have enough community engagement. That is your hypothesis, and then you go and show the metrics that you looked at, maximum of 5 typically, and then what actions did you do to change those metrics and after investigating the hypothesis, and then also narrow it down. Are you looking at big projects, small projects, from within a company, from a community? So different angles to narrow down your search when you look for, okay, how are people actually using metrics? And you want to collect those metric stories, those micro use cases.
Okay. Yeah, I think having a way to systematically do that will help. I think it'll be really helpful to anybody who's trying to do this kind of work, right? Because most people begin curious because they want to understand performance on their project and don't know where to start. But I think this gives people a way to really relate directly to what someone might do with these metrics, and it lets people just start working with CHAOSS and do something that's also they think is useful to them right away. So I mean, I like the idea, and I think giving people examples will help, and maybe even facilitating helping people do their own blog posts as they develop their stories will also be helpful to our overall effort.
Yep.
And I see Jonas is on the call. I know we talked about this as well.
I don't know if he's on another call right now.
Yeah.
But Jonas volunteered to write the blog post.
Yay, we have our first one. I personally, I love the idea, straight up. I do encourage, as opposed to just sharing my screen here to show the work that Georg had bootstrapped, I'll encourage you to take a look at the CHAOSS mail that Georg sent out today, maybe about 3 hours ago or 4 hours ago, and comment on the structure. And we can keep the conversation about the structure going in the next couple of weeks, but I think it might just be a little bit of, trial by fire. We just need to start moving these forward. There's just been kind of demand for this stuff, really for a while. Yeah. I just thought I heard it lately. So thank you for doing that, Georg.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. There was also in CHAOSScon, I'm trying to remember, there was a discussion also about, remember like red, yellow, green? You remember this? That's a little different than this, isn't it?
That's people asking for something. So we've maintained an agnosticness about the work that we've been doing on CHAOSS, where we're not trying to assign values to what our metrics mean. And what we heard from some of the participants in CHAOSScon was, actually, we'd like you to give us some kind of guideline. Maybe we can tweak the parameters, but, we'd like to know how you would judge something as red, green, blue. The suggestion of using LEED certification as a metaphor. Yeah. So where if you reach 60% of the objectives, you are LEED platinum or silver, and 70% is gold. Working your way up that way. And in that case, you'd probably want to define, well, for what purpose? Is it building a community? So for a set of goals, what are our levels and what are the metrics for those levels? And I think we don't want to go straight to that canonicalness, but we want to talk about it.
So this was one of the takeaways from the
work
I had done as well, is that
Mm-hmm.
they want some guidance.
Okay.
So, yeah, and I've been thinking about it since CHAOSS because it would shift what we're doing, where we do start labeling communities as healthy and unhealthy if we do provide this stoplight approach. And ideally, I think it would be good if we can continue to stay agnostic to it and then have community members like Red Hat with their prospector, what Harish was showing, that they provide these.
That are a bit out of band for CHAOSS.
Yeah.
There was a suggestion that came up kind of in one of the side that I was having with some folks, and it was about even just having kind of an out of band to CHAOSS site by saying, here's how people, it's a little like the stories, here's how people have been providing interpretation.
We do something similar to the blog in that fashion.
We could. I guess I'm always concerned about like the work. So there's all the work that's occurring in the work groups, which is taking a lot of time. And I think it's gotten better in terms of how people can connect with that work. And we have the website, and that's super helpful. And now we add the stories, which is, I totally agree, completely helpful, but it's one more thing to take a look at. And so maybe if, I don't know, my hesitation is if we start adding like red, yellow, and green as another thing, that we're starting to get too many parts that people it's going to be hard to connect with the project. So I want to keep that barrier really low.
And I don't want to dominate the conversation, but one of the things about red, yellow, green is that we're labeling communities, and there's so many different types of communities that
and context
that we do them in. We cannot do them justice if we come up with a canonical red, yellow, green.
So maybe let's all sleep on that one for a little while. Think about it.
If the Rust community came up with a system for their projects, or the R community came up for their packages,
but
or
they're the ones speaking.
Ruby gems, yeah, they are providing that.
Not us.
Not us. Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments on that? Any comments on that? How about? Always like to keep it open here. All right. And then the other thing that came up for me was, do you remember Ben's presentation at CHAOSScon? He was using Grimoire Lab to identify dying projects. So basically, Ben had worked with Grimoire Lab. I don't know if he'd worked with you, Manrique, or if he'd kind of done it on his own, but he'd been working with the Grimoire Lab code base to highlight particular things that he was interested in with respect to the identification of dying projects. Do you remember this one?
Yes, I remember. I'm very used to Ben's use case, because actually he started using the toolkit even when there is not even documentation about how to use it. So he's one of the first users, the first contributors, and the very early adopter.
Perfect. So he had suggested, and I think we may want to think about this as ways that, so the work that he had done with Grimoire Lab is basically an instantiation of Grimoire Lab around his particular context. And he had offered to actually donate that work to the CHAOSS project, that if somebody else was interested in taking a look at dying projects, or the kind of the context where he was looking at it, but he's done all the heavy lifting in terms of getting Grimoire Lab to do the work that he wants it to get done. So we may also want to think about how if somebody's taken the time to, say, modify Grimoire Lab to suit their needs, or they've taken time to modify, say, Augur to suit their needs, how do we represent that to people effectively? So I'm not sure. I don't have an answer.
In the case of Grimoire Lab, actually, it's something we have been discussing a lot when we started working with the idea of this toolkit. Is since each user can set up his own or her own dashboards or panels. The good thing is that they can be exported and imported in another instance of Grimoire Lab. So that's, I think, is a cool feature in terms of we can set up some kind of, I don't want to call it marketplace, but that's in a place where people can say, okay, this is the problem I have found. This is how I can drive it to the Grimoire Lab things or Augur or whatever toolkit, and this is how I see the numbers that could be useful for me. Because
Okay.
sometimes I think we are being, even in our specific case, when we started working on Grimoire Lab, we were very narrow-minded of, okay, this is how we think things should be seen in the dashboard. And then we realized that people is very more creative than ourselves for that.
Okay.
We would like to open that to the people.
Okay, so that'd be great. I mean, if you are having this, where is this discussion happening about a potential marketplace?
Actually, it could be just opening an issue in Grimoire Lab itself. I haven't opened the discussion to the community because it's actually some ideas Jesus and me has been changing on flights. So the more we fly, the more we discuss about the idea. Because it's something that could be done. And we also, I think we commented to Ben about this idea. Okay, just put on a GitHub repository or some place that could be imported or exported from the toolkit itself. And I think it could be an interesting use case. Like, okay, how you can use your own panels or whatever. And I think Jesus has some idea of using even the CHAOSS community dashboard to allow people to do that stuff specifically. Like, okay, you can log in the dashboard, you can build your own panel and see, okay, this answers my specific question. I don't need it 20 charts, whatever panels or whatever, just this specific thing.
Okay. Okay, so maybe it's as simple as just opening an issue in Grimoire Lab for the time being, just to start the conversation.
Another approach could be to tie this into with our blog post that we do have or we don't yet, but I think it would be good to have at the end of each blog post, each micro case study reference section. And Ben had mentioned that he has his dashboard in a GitHub repo. We just drop in a link.
Nothing has to move, and
nothing has to move. And then people can find it, and we can add a tag that says this is a Grimoire Lab dashboard blog post, and if anyone looking for Grimoire Lab dashboards can go to it, see how has it been used, what was the use case, what actions have been informed, and oh, here's a link, I can deploy it myself.
And I like that because it keeps everything tidy in one
location.
location.
We don't need a separate marketplace, we just integrate it.
Yeah. And actually, it adds a story behind the dashboard. I think it's so cool because that is one of the missing points here is about what's the history behind, or the story around this data.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah. All right, right on. So far, so good. So those are my takeaways. What did anybody else have big takeaways from CHAOSScon or OSSNA in beautiful Vancouver? We had good weather, by the way. I heard it rains a lot there. Anybody else? You guys, anything? Silence. Silence means good. All right. All right, moving along. I think I saw Josiane on, and not on right now, but Google Summer of Code. Josiane has agreed, she was one of the organizers early on with Google Summer of Code, has agreed to go to, yep, so she was agreed to go to, I guess
the Mentor Summit.
Yep, so she's gonna go to the Mentor Summit. I'm still, we have to, I think we get paid as a community. The timing's a little bit funny, like we get our money from Google at the end of this month, I think, but she has to commit a little earlier. Anyway, I'm trying to just kind of work out those details. So anyway, I'm real happy that Josiane has agreed to go. And I think that's great to not only have her go, but also to have representation of CHAOSS at the Mentor Summit. So that's great. Thanks, Josiane. All right. Why don't we move to software updates? I know we were all in Vancouver last week. So have there been any updates to software stuff? Kind of cool.
Nothing substantial other than what we discussed last week.
Okay. Just moving along.
I think nothing from our side too. We are currently integrating the latest release with our customers, so we are just stopping development of new things, but I think I can post something new for the next month or something.
Yeah, exactly. Once we all get back into our regular routine a little bit more.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Nicole did add a chat for those of you that are on the Zoom meeting here. So thanks, Nicole. I think she's looking at some of the sessions that were occurring over Open Source America. Oh, hey, Nicole. Hi.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Okay. Oh, good.
Yep.
Okay. So I know that there were some of the sessions within the diversity track that were recorded, audio recorded, at least at the Open Source Summit. I know of 4 at least, and I am going to be taking a look at those. I was on the organizing committee with Nithya Ruff and Jennifer Clower for that track. And so I'm taking a look at those. I think one of them, Matt, you may have moderated, so just wanted to let everybody know that I will be writing at least one blog that relates to the work that we do.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Oh, Nicole, I just wanted to say that we also recorded all of the CHAOSS sessions.
Oh.
So hope to have those posted later this week. I can send you out an email when those are up if you want.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
All right, cool. Thanks, Nicole. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, metrics update. I'll take that one. So, you know, as most of you know, that we work with the working groups that help inform the metrics, but one of the ones that actually got some lift off the ground was the risk metric. And I think there are several people that I talked to with respect to the SPDX community, as well as the open chain community, who are interested in being involved in building out the risk component. If you were at CHAOSScon, you may remember that Matt Snell, and I think, were you up there too, Georg?
Yeah.
Georg ran a lightning session on risk. So we at least have some bootstrap ideas on how to start moving the risk metric forward. So all I can say is more to come on that, but I think we're starting to get our heads around it and starting to get a community of people who are interested in moving this one forward. I thought it was kind of interesting at the open chain and the SPDX group, the folks that are there are much more concerned about legal risk and license risk and security risk, right? And I think in the lightning session, we really didn't get much of that. It was more about the riskiness of engaging with the project for fear of failure or for instability in the project or toxicity in the project. That was kind of I think we're going to have to kind of parcel this out a little bit. That does risk entail both of these stories? Does it entail just one story? Do some of the things we saw on that list actually belong somewhere else? I'm not entirely sure. So more to come on that.
It might be a similar issue that we have with diversity, where there's diversity across demographics and then diversity across organizational employment. Those are 2 different camps of people interested in diversity. Yep. And we might have the same with risk, that there are 2 different camps interested.
And so in the D&I, do you just handle both of them? That's the plan.
We're just picking the low-hanging fruits right now and then figuring this out later.
Okay, but there's not an opposition to keep them separate. You know what I mean?
No.
Okay. I mean, my inclination is to bring them together. If people are comfortable talking about project risk from a stability perspective, great. And if they're interested in talking about project risk from a legal perspective, great. And again, like we've always talked about, especially if we started getting at CHAOSScon, we just trying to understand the few metrics that people are using to solve, provide the right answers to the right question, right? So, all right, cool. So that's what's going on in metrics. What am I missing? I thought this might be kind of a shorter call.
With regards to metrics and the diversity inclusion group, we have a new issue as of yesterday or this morning, trying to figure out how to use the goal question metric approach. I know that I tagged some of you in that issue. So if we can maybe get together in the metrics committee and determine how do we write a good goal? How do we write a good question? How do we write a good metric that would help us in the D&I group.
All right, I'd like to be there. Yep, cool. Can do. Did that come from the working sessions at Open Source Summit North America, or was that?
Yeah, it's the follow-up.
To the working, to those sessions. By the way, Ray, thanks for getting us a table right by registration. We were the only community that had a dedicated table.
No worries. I mean, you need to thank the LF events team. All I did was to make a request, and they did the rest. So.
Yeah, I'll send them a thank you for sure. But it was great. We were the only ones. Cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah.
It was really nice.
Really
so,
helpful.
All right, that sounds good. What else? Sean, David, Vinod, Nicole, Ildiko. Anybody?
I can share what we did at the hackathon, the D&I hackathon.
Sure.
So we got together and our goal was to work through the entire stack of documents that we were creating from the top where it says we have the diversity inclusion work group, and then how do we navigate people through to the metrics? What are the different steps involved? And within the diversity and inclusion work group, at the top level, we have focus areas. We have 8 focus areas that is basically a subcategorization. And we could go on creating more subcategories, but we only want to create so much depth that the next level is where we write down the goals and questions. So we take the goal, let's say we want to understand diversity inclusion in project spaces, and then what are the questions we can ask around that? Like, how accessible is the documentation? How easy do you find the IRC channel, and so on. And then the step below that is what we call the resource page, where each question gets its own resource page, where we outline, okay, if you want to understand this question, here are the tools that you can use. Here's how you use them. This can include interview questions, survey questions. This can include a Grimoire Lab dashboard, whatever it is. And then from there, we link out to the metric detail pages, what we have in the metrics committee, where we specify how is this metric implemented? How is it defined? So this is the 3 layers within the D&I group. And then above that, we have the 4 categories within the metrics committee, and below it is the metrics detail pages that are also in the metrics committee.
So could this result in less detail in the metrics pages? You know, like the individual metrics, say it's commits. I always go to that one, but
yeah.
You know how there's like 8 things right now defining commits in that markdown file? Would it change that structure, or is this part of your question earlier?
That is, I don't know.
Okay.
What the documents that the D&I work group is concerned with is facing the user of the metrics who wants to figure out what is my diversity and inclusion. The detailed metric page is for the implementers. So there are 2 different audiences. I
see. Yeah, the metrics page is pretty agnostic to the work group.
Yeah.
Or at least it should be.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so just getting those things lined up.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. Good. Thanks for that work. I think, honestly, I think a lot of the structure, I'd mentioned this earlier, that's coming out of the D&I group with respect to these subcategories and then the goals and the questions and the detail pages. I honestly think this is a really well thought of structure that I would encourage the growth, maturity, and decline group to think about as well, because it would really be great to have that same consistency across the work groups.
And I think the growth, maturity, decline group has largely been following the structure laid out. I think when it comes to goals, ours might not be as
agreed,
as general, sort of overarching, and So we might have a harder time coming up with meaningful goals at a high enough level so that they don't become one overwhelming list themselves. But I think we can have some sort of hierarchy that is along these lines. I just don't have a particular
That's a good point.
prescription, right?
Maybe more narrow goals are perfectly fine. We're just experimenting with what it means to write a good goal. This is part of the discussion we want to have with the metrics committee. How do we formulate good goals?
So are you going to talk about this tomorrow on the DNI call?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be there. Okay. All right, great.
I'm happy to discuss it now if anyone wants to.
I had already promised that we're getting out early. It's like if you have a class and you say we might get out of class early. Once you utter those words.
Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't here for that. Does not count for me.
Oh, I am looking forward to the game. It sounds like there was a lot of great work that happened. So I'm looking forward to hearing about more of that. I wonder, Kevin, you were going to interview a few folks up in Vancouver. Was that already talked about, or how did that go? And
For the
when will that?
For the marketing or for the requirements gathering project. So I did do interviews up there for the marketing interview that we're creating.
Oh, cool.
I did not do any in-person interviews for the requirements gathering. However, I did schedule a few more interviews, so I will be conducting those this week or next week based on availability.
Got it. Okay. But the marketing piece you did? Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so I think, how many interviews did you do for the we're putting together a small marketing video for CHAOSS. Small meaning like a minute. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
We're just doing it here at UNO.
I did about 6 interviews. Very short, just 4 to 5 questions, kind of why do we need community health analytics? What are the problems associated with this? What is CHAOSS? And what's the future of CHAOSS? And actually, if you have some time later on this week, I would love to do a short Zoom interview with you on that, if I could, Nicole.
Yeah, I'd love to. That'd be great.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, great. All right. Oh, Josiane. Okay. All right, cool. Well, thanks everybody. We'll I think have a little bit more feedback next week. Coming off Vancouver is always.
Yeah.
By the way, it was great to see everybody.
Yes,
honestly.
it was.
It was really, really nice to put faces to names, or not Zoom faces to names, but it was really great to see everybody. It was really great to participate in the DNI work and see all that stuff. So thanks to everybody for coming and all your efforts there. And if you weren't there too, we missed you. don't mean to be exclusionary.
Yeah, sorry I couldn't be there.
That's okay.
Yeah. Next one.
No next one.
Next one.
We'll all be at the next one. All right, cool. Thanks everybody.
Thanks.
But
Thank you.
Okay, take care.
All right. Bye-bye.